Hi, everybody. I'm here with my helper, Ollie. Here we go. He gets an early treat. Um, and we have some important things to talk about today. He's a little squirmy. Which the big question is how many Americans will come home in body bags from an Iranian war, a war with Iran? Trump attacks Iran. Let's hope it's zero. Let's hope there's no war. But this isn't going to be like Venezuela where he just pops in and pops out. Trump likes these wars where you can just zip in and zip out with the Delta Force and grab somebody, or maybe just bomb somebody and kill them. But Iran is not going to be like that. And to go over this, I have a piece here by Roger Kimball, who's a scholar I admire, conservative. He's a classical scholar, knows Greek and Latin, and he's the editor and publisher of the New Criterion, a book, or rather a magazine I've been reading for 40 years. He's the recent editor. The original editor was Hilton Kramer, a really good scholar too. Been gone a while now. Um, and we get back to Roger Kimball, who's still alive with us here. And there's a picture of him here. Roger Kimball. He's a handsome fellow, and he's written several books, such as Art's Prospect: The Challenge of Tradition in an Age of Celebrity, Against the Reset: 18 Theses Contra the New World Order. Like that. I'm not a fan of the New World Order, and other books. So he's very well respected. And his article here was in American Greatness, which maybe should rename itself uh, Iranian Greatness, or they hope for it. And I printed this out. You can read it online. They have a picture of the Ayatollah in Iran being burned. Except if you read the caption down below, it says it's a protest in London. So London, not I know they've had those huge protests in Iran recently, but we have protests here too in Irvine, about a mile from where I live at City Hall every Sunday. There was one there last Sunday against the Ayatollah, and there's also pro-Palestinian people, and of course many anti-Trump people, and those kind of protests. It's kind of a tradition there, and now and then you'll see a policeman just kind of wandering around because everything's peaceful. Sometimes they have bigger protests. They march around. It's not like in Minneapolis where there's all those problems. But getting back to Kimball here, his article a couple of days ago uh, was the countdown to Iran's liberation has begun. So he's doing what's calling arguing after the sale. So when you try to sell something, like you want to sell a nice sports car to some guy, you say, well, you're driving around and you see this beautiful girl and pull up and she's admiring your car and gets in. So that's what he's trying to do here, saying Iran is going to be liberated. And he says, peace talk aside, the ticking in Iran isn't diplomacy. It's a death rattle. As a murderous regime nears judgment and a brutalized people pray that liberation at last is real. Where we heard this before? About everywhere. Remember Iraq in 2003? They said they'd greet us in the streets with flowers. It would be a cakewalk. Afghanistan, they said they'd be happy to be liberated. In Syria, they'll be happy to be liberated starting in 2013. And recently they were liberated, and now there's this guy, Jelani, that's his war name. Trump recently greeted him in the White House as a great tough guy. So this guy, Jelani, he's the head chopper. He's chopped off the heads of Christians and Jews and Alawites. So the Alawite head that was there for a long time, Assad, he's in Moscow. And so why does Kimball think this is going to work any better in Iran? A huge country, 90 million people. Uh, Iraq had about 25 million people when we invaded in 2003. Uh, and it was a wrecked country. There are a lot of sanctions on Iran too, but they seem to be holding together. And so let's right here. He says he quotes something he wrote a couple days before this one: "The fog of pre-war in Iran, pre-war." So we're going to have a war. It's a pre-war. It's kind of like a preparation for an operation. They rub you down and maybe give you an anesthetic, and then it's okay. Okay, he says Trump has said that last time he said he wanted peace on Earth was when he was asked whether he had any New Year's resolution just a couple weeks ago. That was mere hours before he unleashed hell against the Venezuelan tyrant Nicolas Maduro, extracting him and his wife and so on. We know about that. It has nothing to do with Iran. Iran is a much bigger country. They have a huge defensive force. They have huge missiles, a number of missiles, many thousands. We don't know how many, but they gave the United States and Israel a tough time back during the 12-day war last June. You remember that? There were, if you read news reports, they really belted Israel, and Israel called Trump and apparently Putin, because Netanyahu's close to Putin actually, and then Putin calls up Iran and says we better call this thing off because things could have been really bad for Iran too if America got involved more. So then the way it happened was, as you know, Trump bombed the nuclear sites there after the Iranians had gotten their people out and maybe their enriched uranium, and then Iran bombed one of our bases but after we got our people out, so it was an arranged ending, unlike what this guy says. Uh, so, but then we come here, and he mentions Trump. Trump describes as a massive armada of the navies going there, two huge carriers with their destroyers and cruiser details. And I had a quote here from Trump. Oh yeah, right here. Okay, here we go. Wait a second. Got this here. This is Trump on Truth Social just this morning, a couple hours ago. 4:12 a.m., presumably in Washington. Trump is staying up late. This is Donald Trump on Truth Social today. A massive armada is heading to Iran. It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln and was sent to Venezuela. Again, Venezuela was like, just a tiny operation. They didn't have much defense. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. He's confusing his pronouns there, but he means the Armada is ready, not Venezuela. As the sentence reads, it says Venezuela is ready to attack Iran, but that's not what's happening. Anyway, hopefully Iran will quickly, quote, come to the table, unquote, and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons. One that is good for all parties. Time is running out. Let's hope that's true. There's some kind of deal. The problem was last year they were negotiating a deal just before Israel, with Iran's help, had the attack on Iran. And Iran wasn't expecting it. This time, of course, they're expecting anything. Anyway, it's interesting that they mentioned the Armada with the approval of Roger Kimball, who's a smart man, read a lot, probably more than me. But the original Spanish Armada, you might remember, in 1588, was going to invade England and turn the Protestants into Catholics, and it failed. And they expected the local Catholics, about 15% of the population, to rise up, but they didn't. They stayed loyal to Queen Elizabeth, even though they had some religious problems, big problems, because the Catholics were being persecuted. But then there was another Armada the next year, headed by Sir Francis Drake, the pirate that worked for Elizabeth, and it attacked Spain. And they were expecting that the people in Portugal, who were being controlled by Spain, that they would rise up against Spain, but they didn't either. So it's kind of the same thing, expecting these people to rise up, and then they don't rise up. So this is a terrible analogy, but everybody likes saying Armada. And there's even a Nissan, one of those huge SUVs called the Armada. It's a big one from Nissan Company. And he says the Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran's butcher in chief, has reportedly moved into a hardened underground bunker. Uh, let's see. Oh, and he says Kimball says about the attack last year in June that ended the Iranian war. As I noted at the time, quote, Trump's attack was breathtakingly robust. More than a dozen 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs and a pass full of submarine-launched cruise missiles smashed into the targets. That's a big wallop. But as I said, it was arranged. And Iraq, I mean, we keep getting all these things mixed up, don't we? Iraq, Iran, who knows where we're attacking next. Anyway, this time, Iran at the time withstood the attack, these attacks by both Israel and the United States, because it had anti-aircraft missiles. At first, there were agents in there, I think sent by Israel, that blew up a lot of the um, anti-aircraft positions, so they wouldn't work. But they jammed them and did other things. But after about 6 hours, Iran got them back online. They had Russian help because Russia supplied them and put them back online. And then at that point, Israel could not send its jets over Iran because it would be shot down. So this guy, I mean, what's he talking about? Okay, and then he's a classical scholar, Roger Kimball, so he has to make a classical reference. Why not? I would. Uh, there's two kinds of conservatives. There's classical scholars like Roger Kimball, and there's people who want to be classical scholars. Conservatives do. We all want to learn Greek, and I've tried a couple times, but just ran out of time. I learned Russian for a year in Monterey, California, at the Defense Language Institute, but the Army paid me for that. That's all I did. Anyway, back to this. He says Roman generals enjoying a triumph generally had an auriga, a slave charioteer, stand behind them, whispering admonitory reminders in their ear. Memento mori, remember that you are mortal. Does Khamenei have some keffiyeh-clad lackey padding behind him in the bunker reciting the words Fordow, Natas, and Isfahan, the names of the weapons manufacturing sites that Trump, quote, completely and totally obliterated? I hope so, not to attenuate his hubris, meaning Khamenei instead of Trump, and confuse them there, which his murderous fanaticism renders impermeable, but to magnify his anxiety. But if you go online, there's a great guy that I follow, Danny Davis, Colonel Danny Davis, retired. He interviewed a guy named Ted Postol, Postol, who's America's top uh, nuclear weapons expert. He's at MIT now. He used to be at Stanford, and Postol goes through all of the ways Iran still could have a nuclear bomb. They might have one already. He showed there's this kind of room, maybe the size of a small apartment building, where they could build a bomb if they have the nuclear materials, and it doesn't take them long to enrich the uranium. So they might have one already. Although the Iranians say it's against the fatwa of the Ayatollah Khamenei, so supposedly they don't have one, according to them. Uh, but the point is, another point that Postol makes is these just before Trump attacked these sites that Kimball takes so seriously here, they moved the stuff out, all the equipment, all the nuclear materials if they had any there, and they're in other locations. It's a huge country. It's just a gigantic country, and they have many places, caves, it's mountains. This isn't like Iraq where it's a desert. This is mountainous areas, lots of caves. So it could be there. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but he's very influential. Excuse me. By the way, there was a series in the around 20 years ago called Rome. It was pretty good, kind of cheesy too, but anyway, they had the scene where Caesar is in his chariot going through Rome, and his charioteer is whispering behind him, "Memento mori." Pretty good actually. It was a good scene. All right, so next we have there's something called the argumentum ad Hitlerum. It's you know, if you took logic or a class in logical fallacies, there's what's called the argumentum ad hominem, which means using just arguing against the hominem, the person, saying, which I've done a couple times here, insulting people, part of rhetoric, I guess. But if that's your only argument, then what happens? And the argumentum ad Hitlerum is when you bring up Hitler, which happens often. And there's also what's called Godwin's law. It's a thing that was developed online 30 years ago when people first had these online message boards, and they and the Godwin's law says that sooner or later in a message board, it's inevitable that somebody's going to bring up Hitler or something to do with them. The Third Reich, Nazis. Excuse me. Let me. The 1930s, 1938 Munich Agreement, Kristallnacht, or Nacht der Langen Messen, the Night of the Long Knives in 1934 when Hitler killed his enemies within the country, including the head of the SA, Ernst Röhm. That's what that means. You always bring it up. So he brings it up here. 7 paragraphs in. I guess that's pretty good. Wasn't the first paragraph. Okay. The suffering of the Iranian people is unspeakable. The huge protests that engulf the country have subsided, not because the regime's crackdown is succeeding, but because it has entered the Hitlerian scorched earth stage. See, there's a problem here too. That this is very much a religious regime, and Hitler had a secular regime. He was trying to create some kind of new fake religion based around Wagner operas. So he had the Wagnerian music and the mythology from the Ring tetralogy, you know, Das Rheingold and Siegfried and all that. Although it did end like Wagner with Götterdämmerung, Twilight of the Gods, Twilight of the Nazis, or as Nietzsche called it, Götterdämmerung, Twilight of the idols, the Nazi idols. Good riddance. Anyway, so he just brings this up here. When you bring it up, then the rest of your argument is. And I have another one here. This is called Behind the News with John Seiler. This is what I do, Behind the News. And this is called Should Iran's Executioners Go Unpunished? And here we go. He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 paragraphs in before mentioning Nazis. The argument about Hitlerum, the Godwin's law. Here's what he says. And something else. Do we really want to live in a world in which people like Moshe Ag, the judicial leader, could terrorize people with utter impunity? Of decades of vowing, quote, never again. That's what Jews and others said about the Nazi regime. No more Holocaust. Good saying, of course. But then he says, this Tuesday marked the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. That was yesterday, January 27th. That taught us nothing more. Did that teach us nothing more than to offer pro forma condemnations when thousands of protesters are gunned down by modern-day Einsatzgruppen? The Einsatzgruppen were Nazi military formations from the SS, and they went around just killing people, especially Jews, Gypsies, whatever, in Eastern Europe. Instead of fighting the war, they were just killing all the people, getting rid of them. Part of the Holocaust, getting rid of Jews and other people he didn't like. So that's this guy's argument here. And there's something else here too. Yesterday marked the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Well, who did it? It was the Russians did it. But this guy favors Ukraine in the war against Russia, which is really the U.S. war against Russia with Ukraine as a proxy. And who's the head of the Ukrainian regime? The main ones in there, they're Nazis, these Banderist Nazis, holdovers from World War II, even though Zelensky, the president, is Jewish. He's just a figurehead. So, I mean, of course, he's not going to bring this up. Bret Stephens, that would kind of ruin the argument about Hitler, wouldn't it? So it was and of course, the Russians who liberated it were the Soviets. The Red Army was what liberated Auschwitz, and the Red Army was headed by Stalin, who himself murdered tens of millions of people. But at this point, it took 27 million deaths of Russians to take down Hitler. And America ran a different war. We had a technological war with bombers and and other advanced equipment to take out the German military machine. The American people never would have put up with 27 million deaths of our people. And the Russian military deaths, just the military, was about 12 million, and ours was 400,000. But again, it was a different war. Both were needed along with the British, the great British heroes, and the Canadians were great fighters in World War II at Normandy Beach. But this guy, I mean, he doesn't point out that part of it. And again, it's a argumentum ad Hitlerum. It's just when you do that, you get rid of it. Okay, but let me go back to one thing. Even though he ruined his whole argument, I wanted to get up with something here. This is Roger Kimball again, and you hear this all the time right here. Going a little longer this time, 20 minutes so far. I hope you're getting something out of this, because I don't want us to go to war and Americans to die over there. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. He says, I would like to repeat and underscore that hope to get rid of the Iranian regime. I noted last week the estimates of those massacred by the theocratic Iranian regime went as high as 50,000 or even 100,000 people. He has a link. Okay, you got the link here on my iPad. Okay. It's a link to someone named Cyrus S. Cyrus is a common Iranian name because of Cyrus the Great, the Iranian leader a long time ago. We've been getting similar reports from the past 3 days. Now it's safe to say that at least 100,000 people were killed nationwide. That's it, this guy right here. It's like about third or fourth hand. And where did it come from? CIA? Propaganda? Who knows? And here's a good question. There's a really good journalist named Mark Ames. I've been reading him for 25 years. And he asked a question about Ukraine and Iran. That he says all these journalists are certain that 100,000 people were killed in Iran by the regime, supposedly. But the same journalists, they've been in Ukraine for 4 years, and they can't give us a real number of how many Ukrainians were killed. I've seen numbers all over the place, from 200,000 to 2 million. The Russian general staff says like 2 million. Of course, that's the general staff, but they're getting propaganda too. Although the Russians definitely have a number somewhere. They're very meticulous about these things. In World War II, they kept, they were almost defeated by the Nazis, but they kept all kinds of records of everything, almost like the Germans did to that degree. So they know, and Ukraine probably knows, and the CIA probably knows. Maybe are they that incompetent? And if they can't tell us that in Ukraine, which has been going on 4 years, and we have the knowledge from inside the Ukrainian government, probably spy on the Russian government. If our journalists can't get that, how can they get this in Iran? Many thousands, no doubt, but 100,000? Come on, that's just propaganda. So that's what we have from that. And I had a couple things more here. We're going a little long today. I want to thoroughly cover this, so maybe prevent the war. I said Americans could be killed there. If Iran has all these missiles now, they've been supplied by China and Russia, and you might say, oh, China, they're a communist dictatorship in Russia. It's Putin. He's evil. He's a terrible person. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. You can't do anything about it. Russia has 5,000 nuclear bombs. China has 600, and they're adding all the time. China's the #1 economic power in the world now. All we can do is talk with them. I've said many times there are 3 powers now. Doing my Mr. Spock imitation. No, 3 powers: United States, Russia, and China. And they only can negotiate or go to war. Otherwise, and war means killing everybody. So they have to get together on this. But they haven't. We have all these proxy wars in Ukraine, and in Syria, and now maybe in Iran again. Uh, so one thing the Iranians can do is shoot these missiles at our troops in the area. A lot of them have been removed from Qatar and other places in the area, maybe Saudi Arabia, but they can all be attacked, and we don't have missile defenses that can stop them. Iran has the latest missiles they've made, and they've probably gotten missiles from Russia and China. All these new hypersonic missiles you can't stop. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know because we're not there. So that's one thing that can be attacked. Another, they could attack the aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers are huge things and can be spotted and targeted. Supposedly, they're keeping them far away from the area. Excuse me, so that they can't be targeted too easily. But at what point are they too far away to be effective? I don't know. Does anybody know that? Our journalists seem not to care. Roger Kimball doesn't care. Next, they could attack the Straits of Hormuz. That's a pretty easy one, just to shut down shipping there. They just say, well, we'll blast any ship that comes in here, any of these oil tankers. That would shut down the world economy. China gets, I forget the exact number, but a great deal of its oil from there, not just from Iran, but from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar. This oil comes from those places, and its economy would shut down. Do you think they're going to put up with that? And what happens if they shut down the economy and all that stuff disappears from Walmart and from Amazon? Amazon and Walmart go broke, Target, because they don't have any stuff to sell you. What about that? How are you going to do when you can't get your stuff from Walmart? Because that would be a total disaster. Uh, and Iran could do that. They could do that in an afternoon. Next, they could attack Israel, and they did last time. If you look, there are reports. There's a guy I watch. I'll put a link to it. Uh, Alistair Crook. He's a former British diplomat. He knows the languages, knows Persian and Arabic and Hebrew. And he points out that Israel was severely damaged during the 12-day war. That's why they asked Trump and Putin to get Iran to shut it down. They had peace, at least till now. And it could be much worse now. And then there's a problem there too, because whether or not Iran has nuclear weapons, we know Israel does have nuclear weapons. And they have this thing called the Samson option. Seymour Hersh, the journalist, great journalist, wrote a book on it some years back. And they can let loose the nuclear weapons on Iran or who knows where. We don't want that to happen, obviously. But if they're backed into a corner, that could happen. Now let's go to one more thing before I close out. And there's this thing called imperial overstretch. Just think of where America has to send all of our weapons right now, the Middle East. Also, we supply Israel with weapons. They've been reloading since the June war ended. Excuse me. Then we're resupplying Ukraine, although now Europe's paying for it. We're giving them weapons too. And we have our troops in Europe. We're supplying them, part of NATO. And I guess now we're going to be sending weapons to Greenland a lot more. And then in the Pacific, there's Taiwan. We're giving them weapons, selling them weapons. And we have our Pacific Fleet. They need weapons. And then there's our fleet in the Caribbean in case we need to invade Venezuela again, or Colombia, or Cuba, or who knows where. Nicaragua, another one. So we have all these wars going on, wars. But maybe we'll hold up this time. Maybe Trump won't do it. Maybe he'll be more careful. Maybe he'll have some deals. Who knows? Although, like I said, Iran is wary because last time they were making deals, then they got attacked right away. Trump was saying, "Hey, we're coming to some deals. We're meeting on Saturday," and then Israel attacks the day before. I think it was on Friday, right? Or maybe it was Thursday. So that's where we are. We are supposed to be a time of peace. We need to repair this country. Oh, and by the way, I'm make sure to go to my Substack, johnseiler.substack.com. I've been writing about the Minnesota situation, Minneapolis. We have all these home problems. And I wrote an editorial for the Orange County Register. A column should be out any day about gold rising in price. Closed today $5,339. Gold did. When Trump came in, it was half that. You know, when the the uprising in Iran was sparked partly because the United States crashed the value of the real. That's Iran's money. It went down 40% last December because they had various ways to suck the money out of the system and crash the value. Because America is the reserve currency of the world still, for now anyway. Uh, but so their currency went down 40% before the unrest. Ours has gone down 50% under Trump, according to gold. And it's gone down even more if you go back a couple more years. So maybe we'll have unrest in the city. Oh, wait, we already do. Minneapolis, Los Angeles. Maybe we'll have a lot more. People are not that happy in this country. And if you send their children over there to die in some pointless war and they come home in body bags, that's not going to be good. So let's hope it doesn't happen. We need to fix this country instead of trying to make every country of 200 in the world perfect. Let's take care of America. Okay, well, Ollie, come here. Come here, Ollie. Okay, he doesn't want to come here. Come here. Ollie wants to say goodbye. I hope that was instructive today. I spoke for almost 32 minutes. And let's hope things don't happen. Okay, here we go, Ollie. Here we go. Oh, remember to like and subscribe this if you got this far. Probably like it. Subscribe, put some comments in, and this is our affiliate, Ollie Treats, named after Ollie. No, it's a separate company by coincidence. So thanks again, everybody. Pray for peace.